So, let's talk about Sonic.exe. If you clicked on this video and don't know who he is, Sonic.exe is a character in creepypasta created by a pedophile who I don't feel like talking about. To put it in very basic terms, a random individual gets a copy of Sonic.exe on his computer, and upon playing it, finds that Tails, Knuckles, and Eggman are being hunted down and killed by a Sonic-esque being simply known as Sonic.exe. After all of this happens, he turns around and there's a Sonic plushie in his room, and there's a bunch of sequels that are really bad, so I don't feel like talking about them. Despite its infamy, Sonic.exe has become a fixture in the Sonic fandom since his creation. This is especially the case now, ever since the Versus Sonic.exe mod for Friday Night Funkin' reignited nostalgia for both the character and concept. This popularity has led to its own sub-fandom within the wider Sonic fandom, which has also attracted some ire from members of the main Sonic fandom, which has, of course, caused discourse, because it wouldn't be the Sonic fandom if there wasn't constant infighting. But we're not going to talk about that today. Instead, I wanted to take a look at the sharp-teethed, bloody-eyed blue hedgehog and sort of examine if there is any way that in canon, considering the mystical, magical, and spacefaring beings that we know of, if there could be a close to canonical version of Sonic.exe that could reasonably fit within the confines of the story. So, before we do that, let's take a look at some different fan interpretations that have tried to do the same. The first one I want to talk about is from the Sonic Villains fan film by Orion Meetoons. In it, he is a scrapped program developed by Eggman who traps victims in a digital world and torments them. Sort of appropriate considering that he seems to be at least somewhat powered by the Phantom Ruby, or was based on some form of code related to it. I may be getting that wrong. While this is similar to the general modus operandi of his original incarnation, this is a little different in the fact that he was made by Eggman and is more so a virus and not a extra-dimensional being or whatever otherworldly creature he tends to be in Sonic.exe takes. There's another take I also really like by FlipDesert72450. It envisions him as a sort of symbiote-esque godlike creature that landed on Sonic's planet and wanted to be Sonic after being reawakened by Eggman. However, this version of Sonic.exe would be defeated by Sonic and his friends and ultimately become redeemed and end up taking their own path to heroism. And as far as I know, this is one of the very few EXEs that happens to be good by the end of their given story. I think both of these are relatively reasonable ways for a concept like Sonic.exe to be implemented into canon proper, using already existing concepts in new ways to create a different kind of character. So what about any hypothetical versions of Sonic.exe that Sega themselves have pointed to? Well, we do have two recorded instances of official Sonic social media accounts referencing Sonic.exe. The first was on Friday the 13th in January of 2017. A tweet containing the words, "Watch out for black cats today. No one is immune. Hashtag Friday the 13th was posted. Attached was a GIF where Big the Black Cat, which as far as I know it's its only confirmed name, floats across the screen before transforming into Sonic.exe. He then hits an Eggman monitor and dies. According to the continued Sonic Oddities wiki, this GIF uses direct gameplay from an unfinished ROM hack by the name of Sonic1.exe Reborn. I looked into the hack on my own time. It seems to just be a simple palette swap. The second instance of Sonic.exe was from a tweet that goes as far back as 2021 on April 14th. Sega posted this tweet, which is a bunch of Game Gear games compiled together, with Sonic.exe being hidden among them. I don't know why it's hidden among them, because why would an exe file be in a Game Gear game? But nonetheless. Since then, there hasn't been any other mentions of everyone's favorite creepypasta icon. So we have two attempts at trying to make Sonic.exe work in canon from fans, and two official acknowledgments by Sega themselves. With this in mind, what other avenues are there available? Well, taking into account some of the iconic villains across the Sonic series, I think there are several ways that one could make a close to realistic Sonic.exe in Sonic's world. Here, let's start with an easy one. After being defeated by Shadow, Black Doom manages to survive the encounter, biding his time and crafting a plan to defeat Shadow once and for all. What would be the best way to defeat Shadow the Hedgehog? Why, of course, creating a clone of the one being that he could never defeat, Sonic the Hedgehog. Using his own DNA and the DNA from Sonic that could be scrounged from their last encounter, Black Doom would create a clone of Sonic much like Shadow. This clone would be host to Sonic's speed, power, agility, and a twisted version of his attitude and morals aligned with those of the Black Arms. The coloration and aesthetics of the Black Arms would also lend themselves pretty well to a Sonic.exe take. I'm surprised this is something that hasn't been attempted yet. Black Doom is a relatively formidable foe in the wider Sonic mythos, and he does have to at least know about a majority of Sonic's friends, since you usually take their missions when you aren't taking his. Since it was said that Chaos Control is Black Doom's power, that already gives him a form of teleportation like he does in a lot of his different interpretations, and combine that with the possible sharp or angled mouth like the Black Arms tend to have, and couple that with his already previously described color palette, I think you'd have a pretty reasonable looking Sonic.exe take here. Sonic has managed to defeat Dark Gaia, and with the help of his friend Chip, banish it to the core of the Earth where it once dwelled. However, soon after this, people are reporting sightings of a being that bears a resemblance to Sonic's werehog form across the world, antagonizing residents of the planet. As it turns out, the small amount of Dark Gaia energy that existed with Sonic absorbed enough of his natural essence and life during his journey that it managed to subsist past the expiration of Dark Gaia itself. Manic and without purpose, it attacks at random, longing for a sense of completeness that it can no longer have, at least not as it exists now. While a lot of Sonic.exe takes are more focused villains, scheming and aiming towards the brutal annihilation of any given enemy, I think that a sort of mindless, werehog-esque beast that is essentially in the form of Sonic, or a form of Sonic, and attacks without any real reason, would still be pretty scary. Not even taking into account the fact the things that he could do in that form, like his stretchy limbs, maybe he could do some crazy stuff where he opens his mouth larger than normal just due to how he's built in that form. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I'm also surprised that this isn't one that has been done before, considering how Dark Gaia is the closest thing to a sort of pure evil in Sonic's world. Alright, this next one is going to take a bit more explanation, so bear with me here for a second. Let's talk about the Angel Island mural. We all know at this point that this is a pretty heavy beacon for fan concepts and speculation across the years in the Sonic fandom. A lot of people theorize that it was how Gerald got the idea to make Shadow a hedgehog, or Shadow in general. Recently, his journal that was created and released as a pre-order promotion for Shadow Gens canonized him going to the islands, but it was confirmed that he only ever got as far as the altar and never actually went into Hidden Palace Zone where that mural would have been visible. So I guess that just leaves why Shadow is a hedgehog sort of unanswered still, outside of the non-in-universe reason of Sonic Team just wanted another hedgehog in their video game. But something that the mural did help inspire was a take on the fan character Nazo. So Nazo, who was initially created due to a misunderstanding regarding a super form in Sonic.exe promo material, became a fan favorite OC to many after the Nazo Unleashed series of animations. An artist by the name of Subliminal on Twitter ended up creating his own Nazo concept that was based on that same Sonic 3 mural. But let me stop there, because this is going to turn into a Nazo video when it is still supposed to be a Sonic.exe one. But the mural made me think of another avenue to potentially provide a different sort of Sonic.exe take when taking into account a bit of an Easter egg in pre-existing Sonic background art. While it's not visible in normal gameplay, the level assets for Hydrosity actually feature a sprite of Sonic on the top of pillars in the background of a given stage. Something cool that I like that they did in Mania is this sprite actually does change to match his Mania design, whereas in Sonic 3 it is the Sonic 3 sprite. I just think that's really good attention to detail. So working with this, why would there be an image of someone that looks like Sonic on Angel Island? And why is there a mural that displays a being that looks a lot like Sonic becoming Super, fighting another being that happens to look like Eggman in his Doomsday mech? Ignoring, again, the out-of-universe context that it's just a fun reference, we can say that a hedgehog-esque being that looked like Sonic did exist during the ancient times on Angel Island. He was enshrined in two different but seemingly important locales for the island, that being their water or some form of main sewer system, and of course a mural that shows some form of prophecy. When you take that into account, he had to have been at least pretty important. So maybe this hedgehog ruled over the area that was or would become Angel Island, whether this was at a time when it was on the ground or when it was already in the sky, and somehow this being managed to pre-exist there. And they were so strong that they were able to get their visage ingrained into the architecture and actual lore and story of the island itself. So strong that a prophecy was made that they would either eventually go on to defeat a great evil, or that a great evil or a great good would defeat them, and they were the great evil, sort of putting a twist on what we do see on the mural itself. They could have essentially forced the ancient echidnas to make that mural, make those statues, and being able to hold the entirety of the ancient echidnas under their fist. But I imagine if a being like this did exist, it's very likely that Sonic and his friends could take them down, because that is what Sonic and his friends do. Looking over my notes, it seems like there is only one other Sonic.exe take that I have left, so let's go ahead and take a look here. So let's say that hypothetically there was a being that existed for time immemorial. It wants nothing more than to bring about the end of everything to fuel its own twisted desires. It takes the form of one of Sonic's closest friends and allies, Shadow, and then manipulates a new desperate hero to kill him under a misguided attempt at heroism. This being would be pulling strings in the background throughout all of this, making sure it all goes as planned so that he can get what he wants at all costs. By the end of it, he succeeds. Sonic the Hedgehog is dead, and from there, nothing can stop him from taking over the world he desires. Hey, wait a minute. Okay, hear me out here, right? Methless is basically Sonic.exe in the closest form to Canon possible. When you really think about it, he hits almost all of the boxes. A malevolent entity that takes the form of Sonic or one of his friends? Easy check. Has powers that by all accounts are ridiculously overpowered and can rival the likes of Sonic and his friends with little or no difficulty? Another check. Kills either Sonic or one of his friends in order to propel themselves to being the true god of the world they reside in? That's another check. Has power that puts them further above any sort of mainline Sonic character? Another check. I can't believe it, but in a roundabout way, we sort of already have a Sonic.exe in canon. Methless exemplifies many aspects that people would then apply to different Sonic.exe takes and even Mario horror brews around 5 years later. While ultimately I don't care about what the original creator intended with the Sonic.exe character, I can't help but wonder about the hypothetical links or if Methless was at all an inspiration for him. With that being said, I think that's about the extent of what I could realistically pull from Sonic lore to make any .exe equivalents. There's a lot of fun that you can get out of an idea like this without resorting to dimensional super devil hell beings that spawned into the Sonic world because of a cult and they kill all of Sonic's friends or people in the body of his friends or whatever else is the given norm for these types of stories. I think the universe of Sonic is one where people really have the opportunity to be creative, and while I personally may get a little annoyed at so many .exe characters that are made to just be cool and scary and kill Sonic's friends or people who look like Sonic's friends or whatever, ultimately I've come to understand that these are just kids or others making things for a franchise that I would hope that they love as much as the EXEs themselves. Just try to give them a break, and more importantly, protect them from others who try to take advantage of them. But with that, that'll be all for me from this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.